Hello everybody, it's now time for us to fit the first officer's glare wing. If you saw in a previous video, you'll know that I made the six-pack panel and wired it all up. So it's now time to just make sure that everything is still working. So I've got battery here. The green wires are all the negatives of the LEDs, and obviously the orange wire is the positive. So we're just going to plonk the battery on. Oh, because we've got two LEDs hooked up, we need to double the voltage. There we go. So that's working absolutely fine. And obviously each of the green wires represents a different pair of LEDs inside the six-pack. Sorry if you can hear my printer in the background. I'm currently printing the boxes for the fire warning and master caution, which you saw me make in a previous video. For some reason I didn't print the first officer's boxes for these, so they're now printing. But the job that I've been putting off for ages, which is what we're going to do now, is to cut the holes in the glare wing to fit the six-pack in there. It is a tight fit by the time you've got the six-pack here, and the two warning and caution buttons here. Currently I haven't got the switches wired up yet. These are wires just for the LEDs, but when it comes to doing the switches, there's two switches in there, so it doesn't matter which side of the button you press. But it's pointless having two signals go into the Arduino, so I will wire one switch to the Arduino and then the other switch will be wired to the first switch, so it doesn't matter which switch you press, it's going to send the signal to the Arduino for the reset. Well, not reset is it, it's the recall, that's it, recall button. So it's time to spread some melted plastic up the wall. So first job is to mask off, just to make the pen or pencil lines a bit clearer. Make sure it's good and stuck. And it's going to take my sliding caliper so we can get, you can see that there's, if you look in here, you can see there's not much of a lip there, so we've got to be pretty accurate with a cut, because the lip is the only thing that stops the whole box disappearing inside. So our cut has got to be fairly accurate. So we're just going to take a measurement. Just allow just a little bit of slack. And then what I'm going to do is lock the caliper in that position. Try and find a sharp pencil. And then we're just going to simply mark where we want our box to start. So I know from doing the captain's side that it's got to be fairly close to the edge here. But what you don't want is this lip here to overhang the round, because that's just going to look horrible. So you want to come in from the rounded edge. So we sort of want the edge of the box about there. So then allow for the lip. So that's going to be our cut line, and then we want to come in the distance of the caliper from that cut line. Like that. Now you can use a square on this bottom edge, because this edge actually sits, just looking at it, yeah, that bottom edge sits flat when the glare wing is level, so we can grab a square. I've got one short enough though. We could take the square off the top because it's the same angle. Right, so that's our width done. Now we just repeat the same thing for the height of the box. And we'll lock that. And again, just going to try and get it fairly central. Okay, that's our bottom cut line. And then if I can, nope, can't get that in there. Just going to have to use the box itself for this, marking this one up. Again, you've got the round on the bottom here, so we don't want the lip to overlap that round if we can help it. And then what I'm going to do is take a square off of our lines that we've already drawn. Sorry if my head's getting in the way. No real easy way to do this. Okay, I think that looks something about right. I can't remember the size of the back boxes, so I'm just going to try and take a quick measure while it's printing, just to make sure that we can fit them in this space here. Looks like we've got about 28 mil, so it's 56 mil. Yeah, we're right. Okay, now for the dangerous bit. Time to get smothered in hot melted plastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut as close to the line as possible, because obviously we can always take more out, but we can't add it back in. So I'm going to cut on the cut line, which should be quite a tight fit, and then we can always just either get the Dremel sander in there or just run the cutter along the line just to take a bit more out. Sometimes what you'll find when you're cutting this plastic, that the actual Dremel will get gummed up with molten plastic, and the actual Dremel will start to judder and jump on you. If it does that, just stop cutting that line for a bit, cut somewhere else, and that will give this plastic a chance to harden again for when you come back to do the cutting. There we go, that's what I said about the Dremel is starting to judder, so I'm just going to leave that a second just to let the molten plastic that's in here cool down and harden again, and then we can go back in and cut. While we're waiting for that to harden up, jobs we've got to do, we've got to fit the warm white lighting under here. And actually fit the glare wing to the glare shield panel, which we will show when we get to it. It's probably going to be a bit of a delay while I wait for the print to finish. Just going to tidy up the corners with a knife. Actually cut a little bit too far there, so hopefully the lip will cover that. Right, so I need a little bit more of the height and just a touch off the width. So I think height will take off the bottom, because then I can get rid of that slight overcut we've got there. And the width will take off the outsides. Again, just tidy up the excuse me, tidy up the corners with a knife, just purely because we're using a round cutter to cut a square hole, so you can't get into the corners with the Dremel without doing what I did here and overcutting the corner. Give it another test. Just need ever such a slight bit off the height. The width is okay. Looks like it's going to drop in nicely on the width, it's just the height. Third time lucky. Still just a touch tight, although it has gone in okay. I think by the time I just run a file along the edge just to take off the roughness, that will be a perfect fit. There we go. That's the 6-pack fitted. So there's no point me showing you the master caution and warning because it's exactly the same process. But what we'll do is I'll come back when I've got these fitted and we can have a look at how it looks. Okay, I'm still just waiting for the boxes to finish printing so I can finish the front with the master caution and warning lights. But while I'm waiting for that, I thought I'd fit our LED under here. So what I'm using for this is this 12 volt warm white LED strip. So what I'm going to do is just lay it in there and cut it to length, which works out just the right length if we cut on that copper patch here. So we're just going to snip that off, and that will stick in there like that. But what we need to do is drill a hole through this corner to bring the wires through. The wires are already in my glare shield. So there's no actual wiring to do right now because when I fit the glare wing onto the glare shield, I'll poke the wires through and just solder them on in place. The wiring in my glare wing is just a continuation, so we've got the captain side, one of these. We've also got the downlight underneath the bottom shelf where the MCP is, which lights the main panel up, and then that wiring then continues and will run to this so that all three come on with the same dimmer. So I'm just going to pop the small hole right in the corner. And whenever I drill a hole, I always like to just run a file over it as well, just to get rid of any sharp edges from the plastic which might cut into the wire over time. Make sure there's no sharp edges on this side as well. And a bit of a brush to get rid of any dust. And also just a spray of alcohol just to give it a bit of a clean. So this is just 100% alcohol, or 99.9% alcohol. It's just to clean the area where we're going to stick to try and make sure it stays stuck. It's always a nice job when you don't have nails. Right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to copy what I've done on the captain side, and I'm going to stick it as far towards the front, getting mixed up there, as far towards the front edge as I can. We don't need a hole in this end because this LED strip is the end of the line for the run. There's no continuation to go anywhere else. Just make sure it's pressed down. And there we go. The reason I put it right at the front is because there's no way that when you're sat in the seat you're not going to see it, and it's not going to be bright. You're not going to catch a glimpse of the LEDs at all because they're hidden right in there. Look. Okay, while we're waiting for the glue to dry on the glare wings that we've just fitted, this is the underneath of my top glare shield cover, and what I need to do is just route a small channel across here so I can get the wiring back inside the MCP box. So what I'm going to do is just route a channel, we can hide the wires in it, and then we can fill over the top and then just apply another layer of paint just to make sure it's all hidden. It hasn't got to be very deep, it's just got to hide 2 wires, that's all. So to do this I'm going to be using a little router piece in my Dremel. I've got a selection of bits here, I don't know which one's going to work best. So we're just going to try one and see how it goes. Might actually flip this around the other way. Just thinking the best side to do it, captain's side or first officer's side. It doesn't really make a difference, but I'm going to do it first officer's side. What I'm just going to do is grab a couple of bits of wire. I'm just going to double this over because that's what we've got to get in there, 2 wires. Just do it a bit more out at the front there. I don't want to go too deep because we're 6mm. Alright, I think that will do us. Yeah, there's plenty of depth there. I just want to offer this back onto the sim just to make sure I've taken it back far enough, but I can't do that because the clamps are still in the way at the moment. So what I'll do is I'll come back once I've been able to offer it up, and then we can get the wires in place. And I need to do some sort of quick disconnect just in case I need to take this off, which I will do because I'm still working on it, so it's on and off the whole time. So I'll do a quick disconnect at this end just so I can unplug it and take the whole top away from the sim. Okay, so I've just finished fitting the connector onto our strip of LEDs here. I've applied the filler, and what I did before I put the filler on was I super glued the cables into the bottom of the channel just to make sure that they didn't push the filler out. So they're super glued in, and they're also super glued just outside of the channel here just to make sure that they can't be pulled and pull any of the filler out. And the connector I used, I fitted the female end to this end purely because it had a longer wire, and then the male will go onto our wiring inside of the MCP housing. Just means that I can take this whole thing off without having to worry about wiring, because I can just split the connection. So now this end is done, I've just got to wait for the filler to dry. It's still wet, and then I will sand it back and just give it a quick coat of black. And now we'll move on and have a look at the connection on the other end. Alright, so I've just finished fitting the warning and caution buttons. And what I'll do is I'll now take them out and just show you how little, should I say, material is left once you've finished. So they're all a fairly tight fit. And there we go. If you're using Carl's plans for the 6-pack, I had to actually make the box a bit smaller because it just didn't have the room here to fit all 3 across. And looking at the 3, it was easier to make the 6-pack smaller than it was to make these smaller, just because of the layout inside with how close the button is to the LEDs. If I'd have made this any smaller, then it would have caused issues with the button fitting in the back. So I decided to resize the 6-pack instead, and then I laser engraved my own front on it. So next job is to wire up the LEDs in the back of the caution and warning panel, warning button, and then get them fitted in here with the wires hanging out the back, ready to fit this onto the rest of the MIP. See you in a bit. Hello guys, we're over at the sim now, and we're going to fit the glare wing that we've just finished cutting the holes for. I've removed the buttons just to stop the wires flapping about while we're trying to fit it. So the way I'm going to fit it, through the side of my main glare shield here, I've drilled 3 holes for M4 bolts, and when I drilled the holes I clamped this in the right place, so we've got M4 holes through there as well. On this side I've fitted just a block of scrap wood, and basically once it's all in place we're just going to drill a couple of holes in this side, and that will secure into that block of wood. I am going to use a bit of glue as well, because I want all that top bit to be one piece, so if I need to take it off for any reason it will come off as one piece. And I apologise for cutting the head off, but I can't get the camera any further back. So the glue I'm going to use, well, at work we call it poo glue, but it's polyurethane glue. It's the type that foams up as it dries, but it grabs really well on anything. So we don't want to put too much on, bearing in mind that it foams up, because we don't want it all spewing out the bottom. So what I'm going to do is just run a bead of glue more towards the top side of this, because it doesn't matter if it spews out the top, because I can easily get to it to clean it, and it's not very seen anyway. So we're going to poo glue along the top there, we're going to put it in place, we're going to put the bolts through, and then as well as the bolts we're going to clamp it tight just while the poo glue dries. Because of the foam in action, it will tend to try and push the parts apart, and where the bolts are it's going to be okay, but I don't want it bowing out in the middle of the bolts, so we're going to put some clamps on as well. I mean, this stuff only takes 5-10 minutes to start to dry, so it shouldn't be an issue. I think we're all set. Once I start applying this glue, it's going to be a case of working fast. And naturally the glue has dried in the nozzle. Back in a minute. Alright, we're back, clog free. So I'm now just going to run a bit of glue right along there. And I'm sorry if I get in the way of the camera, but I've got to work fairly quickly here. Like I said, you only get a couple of minutes before this glue starts to dry, and we need to be fully clamped up by then. It's not the sort of glue you want to get on your fingers either. Just need a hand screwdriver. Yeah, this one's good. When I did the other side, the MCP wasn't in the way. What we have to do, I think, is get a pair of grips to hold the screw, and then just do the nut. Okay, so that's the bolts and nuts tidied up. What I'm going to do now is just apply a couple of clamps between the bolts. Just to make sure we get that bottom pushed right up tight to the bottom of the MIP thing. Alright, looking good. While we're waiting for that to dry, we can drill the holes on this side just for a couple of Phillips screws. I know I've been chatting to a few people that have been working with these Jeremy GLB, whichever one you want to call it, flare wings, and everybody's having a bit of an issue with them. I still can't put my finger on what's not right about them, but they just, I don't know, they're just so fiddly to get right and to get sitting right. Right, and last job is to pop back in our six-pack and warning buttons. And what I'll do is get in behind there with a hot glue gun and just put a few dots just to stop them coming forward. Obviously they can't go backwards because of the lip anyway, so really it's just to stop them springing forwards. And that's pretty much it for fitting the glare shield or glare wings. Do you know what, I get my words muddled up with this glare wing, glare shield, MIP. It all blends into one when you're working on so many different things at once. What I'll do is see if I can grab the camera and bring you in for a closer look. So you can see a bit of the glue is coming out the top there, which is not a problem. I'd rather it came out the top than the bottom, which is why we put the glue nearer the top. And as the two screws are put into the block of timber in there. And remembering the front screw is countersunk into the wood because I don't want it to get in the way of the ethos that's got to go in there, but the other two are just on the surface. And hopefully, oh, we've just got a tiny bit coming out underneath, which is not a problem. And if you look on this side, there's some I've got to cut off there, but it's very easy to cut, it's just like foam. While we're here, we can do a, oh, my power supply's not on. Just step back and give you a view of what it's like at the minute. This side is all working as it should when the power supply's on. Oh, I tell you why it's not working. The power supply is on because these lights are lit up. I've got the sim paused for the noise. There we go. So this side's all working fine. We can do a quick lights test now. Everything is working there. I'm just in the process of making the N1 and the speed reference knobs, which are down there with primer. So there we go. I shall wrap this video up here because nobody wants to sit and watch glue dry. I'll give it about 20 minutes, then I'll remove them clamps, and then it's on to wiring up the 6-pack, the caution and the warning panel. See you in a bit. Alright, so someone was asking me the best way to find the centre of a circle in order for drilling out knobs. There's several ways you can do it. One way is to draw 3 lines between any points, and then squaring off of those lines will give you a centre, but it's only really possible on a bigger circle than this because it's so fiddly trying to get the square off of the lines because you haven't got much width to work with. Another way is to draw a square on the bottom of the circle, and then an X between the 2 corners will also give you a centre point, but again, working on such a small circle, it's not very accurate. The best way I've found is to take the part, put it on a piece of paper, and then take a sharp knife and cut round your part. So you're just transferring that size circle onto the paper. Sorry if my head's in the way again. Right, so now we have an exact copy of our part on a piece of paper. Now it's just simply a case of folding the paper into a quarter. So fold it in half one way, so you've got half a circle, and then fold it in half the other way. So you're left with just a quarter. And now put it back down there, and what we're going to do, you see we've got our quarter, we're just going to nick the very tip off of the point with the knife. I don't think you can even see the size piece that I cut off, it's very small. And then when we open this out, what we're left with is a circle with a hole in the dead center. So now what we can do is place this circle on our part, make sure it's all lined up around the edges, make sure it's good to me, and then we just take our pen or pencil and just colour in that middle diamond that's left. And then when you take the paper away, you're left with a dot in the perfect centre of your knob. Now before I drill, what I like to do is just take a centre punch, put it on our mark, and give it a tap. So now that will help make sure that the drill goes down the centre rather than dancing about on the surface. Hope that helps someone out. Right guys, one thing when you're building a sim, it's really important that you keep some sort of record of what is connected to what, and trust me, this thing is going to save your life so many times. Without this, some of the problems that I've had, I'd be completely lost, because trying to trace a wire in the back of the MIP is, especially when they're all cable tied in, is an absolute nightmare. So at the moment I've got an issue with the red landing gear light, the red one on the nose gear. All the others work, but the top one refuses to work. It was working, but now it's not, so I'm not sure what the issue is. I need to just make sure it's not been deleted by accident from my SimVim config. But to do that, I obviously need to know where it's wired, which is where this handy little book comes in. This is all just scribbles at the moment, but once I finish the MIP, I will type it up and print it out properly. I don't want to do that until I've finished everything, because you know, there's lots of changes going on and wires being added. But it's just a very simple, I think I might have shown this already, I'm not sure, but I'm going to show it again anyway because it's really important. So what I've got listed down this side is what Arduino pin I'm using. So you can see on this top one, it's wired into Arduino pin number 2. I've put here that it's for my MCP. Here I've got what it is, so it's just a multiplexer, and then over here I've got the values 0 to 15, which corresponds to the pins on the multiplexer, and then obviously what is wired to each of those pins. So you've got a approach, altitude plus, altitude minus, out hold button, vertical speed button, and so on. Out intervention, autopilot disconnect, first officer's flight director. So just with a glance at this book, I know exactly what's wired to what, and this continues on for a few pages. Obviously number 9 is blank because I put the multiplexer in for the first officer's ethos, which I haven't fitted yet, so that will be populated when I fit the ethos. And talking of my red gear light, you can see down here that wired to Arduino pin number 10 are my DM13A drivers, which I've got 3 of. And I can see that, let's have a look, I'm trying to read it upside down. Here we go. DM13A, 2 of 3. Number 0 pin is nose gear red. So that's going to be my first protocol, is to check SimVim config and make sure that on number 10 on my second DM13 that number 0 is configured to be the red gear light for the nose. If that's all in place, then second is going to be to check the connections at number 2 to make sure that 0 is wired up properly as it should be, and also check the Arduino end just to make sure that pin 10 is in properly, which I know it is, because if that was the case then none of these would work properly because they're all connected to pin 10. Failing that, then it's going to be checking the LED end of the wiring, just check we haven't got a faulty LED in there somewhere, or you know, a ground issue or anything like that. So it's just a process of elimination. I might find it first go, it might take me a few goes, you just don't know. But I mean, out of the whole MIP to only have that one light issue is not too bad. It's obviously something I want to get fixed while we've still got the back open. And what else have we got an issue with? Still having an issue with the first officer's clock. The captain's clock works fine. The first officer's clock is wired to the same multiplexer with exactly the same wiring, but it just refuses to work. So that may be an issue with the Max 7219 driver board. I might have a faulty one. It does happen. I've had a few faulty ones. So I think it's going to be a case of changing that out and seeing if that fixes it. But I'll show you that in more detail when we go over to have a look at the MIP. But this was just really about this little book. Obviously there I've got my air manager config in there as well, because my MCP uses air manager and SimVim. No particular reason for that. I think I just from memory made a mistake with the wiring when I was just sort of getting to grips with SimVim, and I wired it up to have a common positive, that's it, on the LEDs, whereas SimVim uses a common, I wired my MCP up to have a common negative, which I assumed is what it would be, but SimVim actually uses a common positive and the negatives go to the Arduino. So I mean, I could have rewired it, but I'm using Air Manager and it works, so I'm not going to change something that's working.